Hey guys, welcome to today's video. This is the third video on this series where we are talking about creating a web application. My name is Andres and I'm going through with you. Last week we went to Railway and we deployed our application. So here I'd like to do a couple more things here that I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go to settings here in the top part, and instead of call renew creation I will call this to do application. That way it's easier to know what the terminal to Neovim. And let's go to lazy git, and we're going to create a new branch. I'm going to say here is O3 routes. Okay, so now that we are on the routes uh, branch, we can always start with make with air. So let's go to back to Neovim and let's go back to our server. Now we're going to start adding new routes to our application. So here we're going to say r.route, and I'm going to say here all routes starting with API, and this will be having a function that's going to get a G router that's going to be passed to it. Inside of here, I like versioning my application, so in the future if I create a new version, it's easier to create a new route from there. So I'm going to say r.route again. I'm going to say this is going to be our B1, and it's going to pass a new function. This is one of the reasons I like Chi over the standard library, because we have this capability of creating route groups, and it's easier to read and understand what's happening. So here we have our API B1, and if I say here r.route, I'm going to say here on our to-dos, and I'm going to create a function. So now that we have here, I'm going to say r.get, and I'm going to say here, and I'm going to pass a function. We'll have our response writer and the request as we had before, and we're going to say w.write header. I'm going to give this HTTP status OK, and I'm going to write w.write, and I'm going to pass a byte. I'm going to say getting all to-dos. Okay, let me see, I forget to add here parentheses. Okay, we save it here and go to the browser, and in a new tab I say go to local host 3000. That's the part we were listening. We have hello using air, but if I go to the API B1 to-dos, we're getting all the to-dos. So that way we can see here what we're doing. We're getting all the to-dos. If then I can say here, say r.post, this will create a post request on the root of this route. I'm going to give the function, and don't forget to close the parentheses, and here I'm going to say w.write header HTTP status created, and w.write I'm going to give this a creating new to do. So if we go back to our terminal and say curl http slash dash localhost 3000 API to do's, and we say x mark that x post. So we're sending a post request. Ingredient save maybe. So the service is running again, and let's see here. Page not found. Okay, I forgot to add here the v1, and we have our creating a new to do. So that way we are sending post requests, get requests. If I'm remote here, we're getting all the to-dos, and we can continue adding a new route group. So I'm going to say r.route. I'm going to say here I want to add the ID. That braces will indicate that's a parameter that we're passing, and get a function. And I'm getting a specific to do. So here we can say ID. I'm going to say equals g dot URL param. From the we need to pass the request, and I'm going to get the ID. So here I'm going to say getting. Let's make here fmt dot print f. I'm going to say here getting to do percentage s ID. So that way we can see that we are reading the request, and we go back to our terminal, to do's, and we say here to do 3, getting to do 3, and if I'm saying here to do 5, getting to do 5, etc. etc. So whatever I pass here, whatever, I will get that as a string. So that way we can manage our routes. Now this is starting to become a little bit bulky, and I don't really like that. So I like to separate this into different files. So let's create a new file. We'll say todo.go. So now that we created that file, I'm going to add it in the same package server. And basically we want to have these routes. So I'm going to say here I'm going to pass the functions. So I'm not going to have the functions inside of the routes. I'm going to have them in a separate file. So I'm going to say here function get all to-dos, and this will have a W that will be an HTTP dot response writer, and a pointer to an HTTP request. And what's going to be we'll be doing here? So we'll go 13 up. I'm going to delete inside the function, and I'm going to paste here. Okay. Now we're going to replace here the r.get. I'm going to say the root, and here I'm going to say get all to-dos. Since we are passing that thing the parameters, so we have it here. There's no problem. I'm going to say here function create to do, and I'm going to pass the response writer, the request, and we'll be replacing here everything as before. and I'm going to here I'm going to say create to do. I'm going to say here func get one to do, and I'm going to be doing the same things. And here I need to import, so I'm going to add the import statement, and here I also need to organize all my imports and have everything here. So here I'm going to say I'm going to delete these things, and I'm going to delete here and say get one to do. I want to organize my import so I have all the imports I needed. So right now it's a little bit more readable. So I'm going to get that one to do, and we can continue saying r.put. So I'm going to say here on the route of here, I'm going to say update to do, and r.delete delete to do. Let's create those functions here, and function update to do, update to do. That will I'm going to be an HTTP response writer and a pointer to the request. Sorry. And here I'm going to say ID equals g.url parameter, and I'm going to say all these things I'm completing here. I'm going to do the same with the delete to do. So now that we have here everything working, so usually here we want to have let's do this so we don't have that error for now. Let's change the status, and status no content. That way we will retain a no content status. That's the usual thing that you return when deleting. So here we can check that everything is working correctly. So I'm going to get all to-dos. We can post, that's creating a new to-do. We can also update. So let's say one.x make a put request, update it to do one. We can delete it, and we have no response, so we can add here that dash b, and everything is working right now. As you can see, we're accepting the request and returning no content. So everything is good. Now let's start adding some functionality. And this is where it started to become a little bit more complicated. So let's close this for now, and let's add a new struct. I'm going to call a type. Let's call this a to-do service, and this is going to be a struct, and here we're going to be having some different things that we would want to pass via dependency injection. So when we create our router, we need to also initialize our to-do service. So here we're going to say ts equals a to-do service, and that way we will have our information. And on our routes, we're going to say ts dot. So we're going to be passing all the things we need through dependency injection. And Let's click here and open our to-do. And here we want to say, I would say S star, it's going to be a to-do service. And let's do this for all our functions. So let's go back here, let's go back and say here is to do service, and go to the next one is to do service, is to do service, and let's go back here and is to do service. What's the error we're having? Not having any errors. So let's test if things are working. So let's curl in route, and we're still working correctly. But now through dependency injection, we have any properties that we can give to that to-do service. So for that, let's go back here to our internal folder, and we're going to create here that database folder, and say database.go. And here we're going to say this is a package database, and we're going to add a new type, a to do, and it's going to be a struct that we're going to have an ID that's going to be a type uint, because it's going to be from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, so we don't need to have any signs. We're going to have here a title, it's going to be a string, a completed, that's going to be a bool, and string, sorry I didn't type correctly. And we're going to have here a type to do service, going to be a struct. It's going to be actually an interface. No, this is going to be a struct, and it's going to be a private. So here, and I'm going to have some to-dos here, and finally we're going to have a new type. It's going to be database to do database service, and this is going to be an interface. So here we're going to say what methods we want to have. So we're going to say have a get all to-dos. That's no parameter, and it's going to return a slice of to-dos. Okay, we're going to have a create to-do. So here we have a to-do of type to-do, and it's going to return an error. If something goes wrong, we will not be able to create. We're going to get one to do. We will have an ID that's going to be a uint, and it's going to either return a to do or an error. We're going to update a to do. We'll pass the ID, the uint, and we will also need a to do that we want to update. and it's going to return an error. Okay, and we need to also have a delete method. Um, the get create to do, here I'm going to pass a pointer because I want to be changing whatever we sent. We're going to add a new ID, etc., etc. Also, since we are making here, I'm going to be adding an ID, a next ID is going to be a uint. Okay, so when we create our to-do, so let's go back to our server. When we create our to-do, we want to pass a, so we need to do something here. We need to create a method to we can initialize our to do. So let's open here our database and go here and say func new to do database service. We're not passing anything, and we're going to return a to do database service, and we're going to return our to do service. So here we need to create a method. So I'm going to create all the methods so we don't have the errors. So it will comply with the interface. So we're going to say func s. I'm going to say this is a pointer to the to-do service, and we get all the to-dos, and a function create to-do. Let me, so here, so we're going to, for now, we're going to be returning everything we need. So just a new error or something that we're returning, and the function. So now we have everything comply, and instead of here, we're going to say database. From the database package, we're going to be a new to do database service, and that way we have initialized our database service. And okay, that's not complying with the interface, so let's undo. And here we're going to say we need a database that's going to be of type database dot to do database service. And here, since it will be returning our database, we're going to say db is database new to do database service. So that way we have everything created in the proper way we need them to work. Finally, I'm going to do right now the get all to-dos, and that way we can see, and I will be continue creating all the methods on a later chapter because I don't want this to be too long, so you can follow. So here we're going to say we get getting all the to-dos. So actually we have this. We're returning all the to-dos in our to-do service. Let's create here. So I'm going to say I'm going to create a new to-do. I passed a to-do, so I have a title and a completed. So I'm going to say to-do.id is equals to our s.nextID, and I'm going to say I'm going to add 1 to the next ID, and I'm going to return here our to do. Since here we don't have anything, and finally we need to, I was forgetting something very important. So I'm going to say s dot to do's is equal, I'm going to append the s dot to do's into the s dot to do's, our to do. So this way we can create a new to do and return an error, because when in the future chapters when we're adding an actual database, it can throw an error. So let's do it that way. So now we have this. We get an ID and we want to see if we can return. So I'm going to say for. I'm going to get no index. I don't get interested in the index. I need that to do information. I'm going to range through our s dot to do's, and I'm going to say if to do dot id equals the ID I passed, then we're going to return our to do and new. But if we don't find it, I'm going to say errors dot new. That's it. To do not found. Okay. I need to next. We need to continue and say to our update. And here we'll say to do is going to be a new to do. So for I'm going to say t just equals range s dot to do's. I'm going to say if t dot id equals id, I'm going to say to do equals t, and I'm going to break to add the memory. Sorry, I'm passing a to do here, so found to do. Okay, so here I'm going to say if t dot id, so t sorry, t dot id, to pass here. Okay, so I have my to do. So let's go here, say if found. If we didn't find the to do, our ID is going to be 0. That's the 0 value. So that way we know that we don't have it to do, and we can return a no to found. If we found it, we can change the title and the completed. And now we're going to need the index, so we can update to do index. I'm going to give it the -1, and here we can say here actually 0, no, -1, since our I is of type int and our to-do index is of type int. So here we can say to-do index equals I, and we can change here and say if our to-do index, I think it's better this way, -1, then we can change everything, and our found to-do.id is going to be our ID, our to-do.id, and now we can say here the to-do index I'm going to change with our found to-do. That way we have the update, and we need almost everything from here for our delete. So let's go here and let's copy all of this and paste it here. We don't actually need our found to do. Let's delete here. We don't need our found to do, we just need the index. And here we can say, and that we're going to append from the start, just a way to delete them in a slice an index. So that way we have our methods. Now let's go back to our todo.go, and here we're going to get all the to-dos, and we're going to say to-dos equals, we have the S and we have our database, and we can get all the to-dos, and here we can say JSON. From the JSON package we have a new encoder, to our W, and we can encode our to-dos. Let's say this. With this thing, let's see here, return value. It's not check. Okay, we're not checking for errors here, so that there is not a problem. But now, if we go here and we say we can curl to the to-dos, and we get an empty array. Let's create here a new to-do. So let's create a different to-do. So let's say to-do equals a database dot to-do. I'm going to say here that the title is new to-do and it's not completed. So we're going to say here we're going to get a t equals s.db dot create to do, and we're going to pass the address, and it's going to get an error, but for now we don't need that error, and we can say here w dot say JSON dot new encoder, and we can encode that to do, and that so we can say we can append, so we can post, and if we get all the to-dos, we get an array with the to-dos with a correct ID, and so on and so forth. So for now, let's leave it like that. Next week we're going to be reading from the post request data and add it to do where we can send the data and makes a lot also with the put requests. So thanks, guy. I hope you are enjoying this journey, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye, guys.